worksheet? Okay. Anyway, so we'll do it first 3 times together, and then we're going to try a round, which means that I'll be singing one part, and Dave will be leading you all in the other part. And the people online, you can sing with me. And I don't know if we'll hear them in the church, and if we will, or they'll hear us. Who knows what that's just going to be like? But we thought, why not? Why not try it? At least I thought that, and Dave is willing. Okay. Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat will come ashore. Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat will come ashore. Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat will come ashore. Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat will come ashore. Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat will come ashore. Okay, so I guess we'll try it now with doing it, and I'll start it, and you guys online can sing with me, but none of us can hear anybody but ourselves, but that's okay. We're singing to God anyway. And those in the audience in the church will, I think, be able to hear at least me singing a part, a different part from what you're singing, which is just fun to sing differently, but still in harmony. There's a life analogy there, I think. Okay. Dave, I'll nod to you, David, when you start, right? You know, I think, right? Okay, so I'll go first by myself. Lift your heart in strength once more. Now, soon your boat will come ashore. Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat will come ashore. Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat will come ashore. Lift your heart in strength once more. Soon your boat will come ashore. Soon your boat will come ashore. How did that work? Was it fun? I ran to see the gallery. There you go. Now I can see everybody. Hello to Alison and Janet and Prashanti and Rohan here in our little TV screens. Yay! It's nice to have. Okay, let's sing this chant, Saint Teresa of Avila, and I actually hope if I had it more together, I would have posted it on the chat box for you guys, but I think you should be able to sing along. Let nothing disturb thee, from Saint Teresa of Avila's admonition. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not.
Patience and endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you want nothing more. God.
Okay, you need to be muted in the church. You need to be muted. Thank you. And nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you want nothing more. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. God alone, God alone, God alone's all we ever need. Let nothing disturb you, nothing affright you. All things will pass, but God changes not. Patient endurance not. Patient endurance brings you to victory. Once you have God, you want nothing more. We'll take this next chant into meditation, so you can prepare your body. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. Or if I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. All I live for is to l All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. Lord, when in darkness, Lord, in confusion, always I'll follow thee. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. If I grieve or lose my way, only thou canst comfort me. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. Now let's continue chanting that. All I live for is to love thee, my eternal friend. As we go into meditation, check your posture. Your spine is straight and your shoulders are back. You're relaxed. Let's take 2 double breaths. Inhale through the nose. Hold and tense every part. Exhale through your mouth. Again through your nose. Tense, tense. Exhale. One more time. As you inhale, feel your energy rise with your breath up to the spiritual eye, the point between the eyebrows. Exhale. And as you inhale, you can chant the mantra Hung, and exhale Saw. I am spirit. I am he. I am peace. Hong Sa. Inhale. And exhale. Continue doing this for a couple of minutes, or any other centering practice, Kriya. We'll meditate for 5 minutes and be sure to leave a couple of minutes at the end to really dive deep.
Remaining in a meditative state, please listen to this week's affirmation for self-healing, alertness. There are two currents in life. One takes us downward towards unconsciousness, the other upward towards cosmic consciousness. The first is an impulse born of the sense of past familiarity. Life, like a lotus, evolves out of the mud of lower consciousness towards the light of divine awareness. Subconsciously, we imagine ourselves comfortable with the stages we've traversed so far, but we are not always so ready for the adventure of further growth. The second current in life is the soul's impulse. We cannot find happiness in turning back toward the mud. Fulfillment lies only in reaching up towards perfect divine awareness. To achieve it, we must be alert in everything we do, for in the flow of increasing wakefulness lies the joy we are seeking. I'll read the affirmation once through, then we'll practice together. I am awake, energetic, enthusiastic. I give my full alert attention to everything I do, knowing that in absolute consciousness I shall find God. Now in a conversational tone, I am awake, energetic, enthusiastic. I give my full alert attention to everything I do, knowing that in absolute consciousness I shall find God. Now in a whisper, I am awake, energetic, enthusiastic. I give my full alert attention to everything I do, knowing that in absolute consciousness I shall find God. And this time silently taking the affirmation into the subconscious, repeat after me. I am awake, energetic, enthusiastic. I give my full, alert attention to everything I do, knowing that in absolute consciousness I shall find God. And the last time, bringing your attention to the point between the two eyebrows, will affirm in superconscious awareness, silently, I am awake, energetic, enthusiastic. I give my full, alert attention to everything I do, knowing that in absolute consciousness I shall find God. I am awake, energetic, enthusiastic. I give my full, alert attention to everything I do, knowing that in absolute consciousness I shall find God. In the prayer, let me pray always with alert, awake attention to thy listening presence, knowing that thou dost hear the merest whisper of my thoughts.
Now we'll have our reading.
True with one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Last week, we considered Satan's temptation of Jesus in the wilderness after his baptism by John. We discussed the question, does Satan exist? All of us experience temptation of one kind or another in our lives. Some of us frequently, others only occasionally. Whether temptation comes to us from our own subconscious or from outside ourselves, is secondary to the fact that it does come and that we must deal with it. More important, then, is the question how to deal with it. In fact, how to deal with tests of any kind. Martin Luther flung an inkpot at the devil, who had appeared to test him. A dark stain on the wall of Luther's cell is pointed out to tourists in support of this story. Unfortunately, our trials are not often so summarily dismissed. As a fellow monk once said to Swami Kriyananda, speaking of Satan, if only I could get my hands on him. Jesus, during his temptations in the wilderness, overcame them and thereby set an example for all time by clinging the more determinedly to God. As Paramhansa Yogananda used to say, darkness cannot be driven out of a room with a stick. Once you turn on the light, however, the darkness will vanish as though it had never been. Jesus manifested this principle. The Bible tells us, therefore, that at last the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. In the Bhagavad Gita, the point is clarified further by the added explanation that there are three qualities in human nature: sattvic, or spiritually elevating, rajasic, or ego activating, and tamasic, or spiritually darkening. It is this triune aspect of human nature that the third chapter refers to with the words, as fire is hidden by smoke, as a mirror is dulled by rust, and as an embryo is enclosed in the womb, so is the indwelling self enveloped by desire. Yogananda explained that each of these examples describes one of the qualities, or gunas. Sattva guna, that which elevates our consciousness, can be freed of any identity with ego by a little puff of meditation and right affirmation. Rajoguna, which embroils the ego in restless activity, can be worked off with a little more and a little longer effort. Tamoguna, embracing as it does such mental states as laziness and stupidity, can only be outgrown in time, since it inhabits even the desire for self-improvement. The example Jesus gave us was intended more for those in whom sattva guna is predominant. But if you yourself find elements in your consciousness that resist even the effort to cling to God in prayer and meditation, don't despair. Patience, as it has been well said, is the fastest path to God. As long as your efforts take you steadfastly in the right direction, you will come out right in time. Remember Yogananda's words, a saint is a sinner who never gave up. If, however, your nature impels you, even against your will, to move in the wrong direction toward egoic desires and away from God, strive at least to detach yourself mentally from your wrong actions, which are induced by habit. The time will come when their own stored up energy will tire and diminish. At that time, if you have not contributed to that energy by your consenting will, you will find it possible at last to redirect your energies more constructively. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Whoa. Whoa.
Thank you, Jackie. That was powerful reading, wasn't it? Okay, so today's Whispers from Eternity reading is, if you don't know, Whispers from Eternity is one of Yogananda's books, and it's filled with prayer demands and poems and great wisdom and devotion and light. And he said, when I am gone, read my whispers from eternity. Eternally through it, I will speak to you. So this is number 158. With every stroke of my prayer, I move nearer to thee. Father, swimming in the sea of my craving for thee, I find myself beaten by the winds of severe trials. Floating on cresting waves of pleasure and pain, then sinking down into the depths of indifference, I still keep looking for thy shoreless shore. With every stroke of my powerful prayer, I move nearer to thee. Never shall I give up. Thou thyself, I know, dost look for my coming. Well, there's so many directions I could go with this topic, and the reading really nailed it, of course. But I just want to share a couple of things. I've been here in Assisi at our community, and it's been a very rich time with different programs. Asha was here, and Jyotish and Devi are here, and it's a busy time. I'm getting my battery recharged with doing lots of music and a lot of activities. Anyway, I am returning home to Rhode Island next week. So anyway, the battle of life, the Mahabharata, that pretty much, it's this. Maha means great and Bharata means story, so it's the greatest story. And actually, the places do exist in India. Story of good versus evil and the hero, everything that kind of all the great stories are. And you have the Bhagavad Gita, which is a very small section of the Mahabharata. But there is a battlefield of Kurukshetra that you drive through. You go through on the train when you're going north of Delhi in India, and you kind of think back to how many thousands of years this happened. Well, Yogananda said that it is an allegory for all of us as well as being true. It is actually true for us that within us we have the good guys and the bad guys, and a lot of this is the choices that we make, and always trying to keep our energy moving up and rising up to the highest possible place. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, who represents God, and he's the charioteer and guru of Arjuna, who Yogananda said he was that same soul, Arjuna, and he's on the battlefield, and he's saying, I can't do it, because he's looking across the battlefield, and they're his cousins he grew up with, and now there's this battle for the kingdom, or right versus wrong, and he just, he said, I just can't. And so all of the Bhagavad Gita and the passages we read every Sunday, there's a passage from the Bible and a corresponding passage from the Bhagavad Gita in each of the readings. It's all encapsulated in there, the game of life and how we should pass our tests. And basically, if you think of all the great stories, the Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and the Narnia stories, all of them have Harry Potter. I happen to love the Harry Potter stories. Anyway, one of the interesting things in the story of the Mahabharata before the battle takes place is, and it's really, there's many stories in this big story, but it's at the point when they realize they're going to war, Arjuna and his cousin Duryodhana, and so they both go to Krishna, who's their guru, their teacher, God, also represented God, and Krishna is sleeping, and Arjuna kneels at his feet, and Duryodhana comes to his head, and when Krishna opens his eyes, he sees Arjuna, and he turns and sees Duryodhana, and he says, "What may I do for you?" And he gave them a choice that one of them could have just him on driving the chariot. That's all, just Krishna, and the other of them could have all of his armies, his elephants, everything, all of his war machinery, and so Krishna said, and Arjuna, since I saw you first, you can choose first, and you can kind of see, Duryodhana's like, oh no, he's going to choose the one I want, but Arjuna says, I want you, Krishna. That's all I want. And Duryodhana's like, yay, I got the elephants and the cannons and everything. So then they go to war. But I think that's interesting too, is if the allegory is we choose God, and in this world there's so many choices that we can make, that and in the reading, of course, it's the same thing. We stumble and we don't always make the right choice, but we keep one step at a time, keep plugging our way, and eventually our ship will come in, right? Just like the song, lift your heart and strength once more. So I wanted to tell this story. So Dhyana, who is head of Ananda, India, and she and Devi are very close friends, like sisters. And Devi told this story recently. So it has to do with environment, because how we face our tests, how we meet them, is we have these choices. We want to surround ourselves with like-minded people. We want to meditate. What it was said in the reading, a little puff of meditation, even a little puff, even a little practice of this inward religion will free one from dire fears and colossal sufferings, as it says in the festival. So we know that that's true. So, and part of that is a choice. It's always choice of what kind of environment we choose to live in, and meditation. And at one point, so Dhyana was talking with someone, and the person was complaining or, not really with the right attitude. And at one point, Dhyana said, "Lady, what station are you listening to?" And I can just see her saying that, because it's like we have a choice. Are we going to listen to the good conscience, the bad whatever? So that was just a funny image that I've had. But there's so many ways that we also can help the world in combating this wave of darkness, as it said. You can't chase the darkness with a stick. You turn on the light. We are all powerful beings of light. We wouldn't be here right now. We would, if we weren't able to be channels to help in any way we can, just by being kind to somebody, even not cursing someone they cut you off, and just everything. There's so many we have so many challenges every day, and how we meet them, of course, that it's that's what it all comes down to, is just continuing to try to be, to not go, give in to the downward pulling, but sometimes you have to. Sometimes you just need a little cry, but you have to quickly get yourself, put on good music, get around people, do something kind for somebody. There's this game that my friends and I love to play, and in it, you're kind of, I'll say the game. It's called The Settlers of Catan, and you're building roads and kind of to different areas that have either sheep or wheat or brick or these things, and you use those resources to build your roads anyway. And in your mind you have like, okay, these are the cards I've been dealt, and so I'm gonna go that way, and immediately somebody cuts you off, and it's like, God, when I first started playing this game, I loved it because it showed me where my attachments were, where it was just a game, but I would have a reaction where like, God, thanks a lot, I was gonna go there, and now very quickly I learned, but I love, it's also just one of those games where socially you get together and talk and hang out. It doesn't really matter what the game is, but in this case we have a bunch of us here in Italy who like to play it. Let's see, what else was I going to say? In the realm of environment, one of the big themes this summer, there have been two themes. First, we had a Joyful Arts Festival with Asha, fantastic, and Jyotish and Devi were at the last part of it too. And there were about 30 people from all over Ananda who've been in the arts with theater and dance, and people from Palo Alto and from Ananda Village and Sacramento and from India. And we just were not brainstorming, but looking at how important creativity is in our lives. And it's something that Swami Kriyananda felt very strongly about. And he wrote a book called Art is the Hidden Message. And a lot of what we talked about was based on that. So I hope we have that in the library. Along that line, Dana Anderson, who co-led this with Asha, is an amazing artist. You probably know her. She has some of the Swami's books have her paintings on them, and she's like me. She lives part of the time in Italy and part of the time in the U.S., although I'm here more in the U.S. This is just a quick 6-week jaunt to Italy, but I have to deal with visa stuff and everything. But a good time to be here in the summer. Anyway, so in this incredible 2 weeks of immersing ourselves in how we can bring the arts more into our communities. And for instance, the way Asha put it, she said something like, we've got music down. I mean, we're good with music. She said, but a lot of the cultures that are studied in the past, from the past, they have a lot of art. In fact, a culture is kind of judged by its art, and dance is one of the things that Asha feels very strongly about. And it was really fun to see how already at Ananda Sisi there is more kind of that's already starting to happen, and like dancing, doing a dance movements to a chant, for instance, at the end of a kirtan. And anyway, I just wanted to say that's very exciting times that I think this wave of the arts will spread. And really great news is Dana is going to be coming to Rhode Island, and also we hope to DC and New York, we'll see, in October. So the weekend in Rhode Island is, I believe, the 24th to 26th. So put that on your calendar. She will be doing a workshop on Saturday, and she is amazing how has such an ability to help you tap into a stream of creativity that you can learn to use, not just for painting or singing or whatever, but in all of your life. It's not just about the arts, but it's about the creative force and how important that is. So that is a way we can that helps meet our tests. Certainly is doing more things like that. And the other big theme has been community, and it really seems like this community energy is starting to explode. There's a couple of new communities happening in Europe, and so we'll see what happens with that. But how important it is, your environment really is what that comes down to, is the people that you do your everyday life with, and how that can be such a rock and an anchor in the battle of life, the battle of good versus evil. And I love the line, I think it was at the end in the reading, that eventually our desires, which, those are a lot of the things that capture us and kind of steer us more downward, are the desires. But eventually the desires will tire and diminish. And I love that message of hope that, yes, eventually, the battle will be won. So, and on that note, we'll have you guys say the prayer in the church, and then I will sing the Song of the Nightingale.
So please take what you would like to give and place it in your right hand and repeat after me. Divine Mother, we offer to thee the fruit of our labors. Bless this offering